4 minutes of all the music and the sound that you played
That's all right,
was.
Utsudha. Hey,
Yeah.
Utsudha, welcome again. I thank you very much. Excuse me. Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge, as you guys all know by now, comes live every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern and 8 o'clock Pacific. We talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Collective initiative of World Hindu Council of America. Hindu Lounge and Hindu Pact are brought to you by World Hindu Council of America. World Hindu Council of America is one of the most premier American Hindu organizations. And with me, as always, is our host, co-host, Utso Chakrabarti, who is right now in Kolkata. And he's going to do some live reporting on West Bengal. And Utsoda is the executive director of Hindu Pact. And I am Ajay Shah. I am the president of World Hindu Council of America, or WHPA. And Utsoda, I have to ask you this question. So before we start, since you're in India, so were you able to fit Mamta Didi in your calendar yet or not yet? And when is that, when will you find time to meet her? I mean, I know that she's eager to meet with you and she's trying, and I don't know how far you've gone. I mean, I think you should make some time for her.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I think I'm too small a person to meet important
No.
people.
I said, have you been able to find time for her?
I have not been able to find time. I'm actually trying to take care of stuff, personal stuff. Visiting
but I
in
mean, don't
India after
disappoint Mamta
almost
Didi.
5.5 years. So
Well, because
so
if I mean, right now she's trying to get on your calendar, but if you don't fit her in your calendar, you might be kind of, thrown into jail or maybe wait to away. You may not be able to return to US. Who knows, right? It's West Bengal.
I don't know what to say.
So all I'm saying is that please make time for Mamta Didi. I mean, I know you're a busy guy. I know you have a lot of personal things, but Utsoda, let's start the show. We have a really fascinating show today, and I know that many people here have already probably seen the movie, the Kashmir Files, and we're going to talk about Kashmir Files, and we are also going to talk about. The condition in West Bengal, because you are there in person, so you have a lot of insights and a lot of things to share. So Utsada, with those two things, so Utsada actually went to the theater and watched the movie The Kashmir Files. I know that we were one of the one of supporting organizations when the movie was when the movie was released initially. And in a pre-release kind of form, and it was going around in US to various cities in invitee only setting, and it was really well received at that time. And so that I was in the theater yesterday, and when I went to theater and the movie first came on, right in the opening scene, there was a logo of among all the 15-20 organizations that supported them. There was a logo of both Hindu Pact as well as BHPA. And then you sent me this last night, and you said, and I'm just going to skip to this slide, and you want to talk about this a little bit. So, how did this come about, and what was our, how did we end up, supporting this movie in our small way?
So this I have had the privilege of knowing some of the leading Kashmiri Hindu leaders in America, and over the last couple of years, we have had interactions with them. Amongst them included people like Dr. Surinder Kaul from Texas, who was one of the key motivations behind the effort to promote and popularize and make this movie big in the US. And Dr. Surinder Kaul, I have to give him a shout out. He's visiting India right now, along with the filmmakers. I actually see him on different TV studios nowadays. So it's very, very fulfilling to see people we have known and worked with in the past are getting the recognition for their efforts. Similarly, I have known another person named Dr. Mohan Sapru, who is in Washington D.C. area, who also was one of the drivers behind this movie. And along with that, we have an in-house team We have an in-house team in Boston of amongst of Kashmiri Hindus. So we have many people, we have many organizations, Kashmir Overseas Association of USA, GKPD, that we have worked with as through as Hindu Pact, and at a personal level myself, I have been associated with this issue for many years, actually for 15 16 years. So it's been a it's been a process to know these efforts happening. And when this initiative was started, I was aware of what was being done through different people. And and as it matured, and now it's a extremely fulfilling project for Vivek Agnihotri and everybody else who were associated with it. We see the fruitions of the efforts that were made. And I think a shout out to every Kashmiri Hindu in America, including our in-house team members, as well as people in different Kashmiri organizations, for their success.
And we have a close association with several people from the Kashmiri Pandit community. I mean, Sanjay Kaulji sits in the executive board of VHPA, and we have worked with him very closely. And we have worked with Dr. Subhash Kak. He has attended several of our programs.
and
Uh,
and Sanjay Palji is also part of Hindu Pact's Kashmir team. So
Correct,
he has been leading many efforts from Hindu Pact side on the
correct.
Kashmir
And then we have
communication.
worked with Bansi Pandit ji, who in the early days of Hindu Students Council, he wrote this book called Hindu Mind, and that book has been very educational, and we have utilized that book to educate Hindus, for many years now. So that with that, let's dive into a little bit about the movie. And I think for people who are going to be watching this show, this may come as a very different kind of analysis of a movie than they're probably used to. As we always do in the show, we kind of go behind the scenes and bring out things that other people have probably overlooked or thought that's not important. So we are going to talk about that. But first, let me just give you my personal impressions. So that, as I said, I kind of missed the original pre-screen, and so I had to watch it in a theater. I can tell you, so that there were not that many seats available in the theater yesterday. When I went, I tried to book the seat. I know there are some COVID restrictions and all that still in theaters, but I mean there were really very few. I mean there were only about 5 or 6 seats open in the theater in New Jersey where I went. Um, I thought that the movie was exceptionally well made. The movie, as everyone knows, is based on true stories. So obviously it's a movie, so they have to stitch together a lot of things together. But the essential, incidents that are shown in the movie are all based on true story. I think it really it showed many things that are kind of coming together. And one of the things I saw was that it is a very nicely weaved story of how the people who are trying to break India have kind of come together. And you see that exemplified in this character of Radhika Menon. Radhika Menon is this professor at ANU, which is obviously, for anyone who knows anything about this, is a take on JNU. And JNU being for people in America who don't know that, JNU is the Indian version, only probably a little bit more vicious version of UC Berkeley. So you take UC Berkeley's ideology and you add violence to it, and you add all the other extremities to it, and that becomes JNU. And JNU is full of professors in the arts and humanities department of people like Radhika Menon. So now this is the character of a person, of professor, who instigates the students to turn them into and woke is really not even a term that describes them, that turns them into pro-terrorists. And she maintains a very lavish house, which goes without saying that, you on one hand you're preaching communism and you're teaching Marxism, and on the other hand you're sitting in this lavish house, you're taking one student, you're using your pulpit in a professorship to brainwash the students into your, not just to win the college elections. That was not the goal. The goal was to really take this new generation of academicians, because these are the people who are doing PhDs and masters, and turn them against India. And she actually makes a comment that you have to have a villain in every movie, in every protest, in every election. You have to have a villain. And she preaches kids and teaches kids how to become seditious against India. And she maintains this close, illegal, informal network with the terrorists in Kashmir. The second part of it was the flip side of it was here is a person who is a self admitted murderer, right? Who says very casually that, yeah, he has killed 20-25 Kashmiri Hindus, has no remorse, and he goes and meets the top politicians. He is also in close collaboration contact with this Professor Radhika Menon, a communist sitting at ANU. So you can see the urban Naxal, another term, kind of, a book that Vivek Agnihotri, the producer of this movie, wrote on urban Naxalism, and a close tie of urban Naxal with people who are violent murderers who are trying to break India apart. And that is the setting. So that is the setting for this particular movie. That here is, here is a Kashmiri Pandit kid who does not know his own family's background, who knows that he has this crazy, quote unquote, crazy grandfather who goes around, who writes a letter to Prime Minister every day. He has written 6,000 letters. He has dementia. His grandfather is going out every day with a old torn placard and a torn coat, played marvelously by Anupam Kher, who we just talked about him a few months ago. He got honorary doctorate from the Hindu University for all these contributions to art. He goes around with this placard about abrogation of Article 370 without even knowing that the Article 370 was already abrogated a few months ago. But that is the PTSD kind of syndrome that he is carrying in him. So it's a really nice weaving of all these stories. So I have a lot more things to say, and about the things that now I'll talk about the things that how is the other side receiving this. But before that, please, give us your view. What did you think when you saw the movie?
Well, I had the privilege of watching the movie during the pre-screening back in fall last year when Vivek Agnihotri was visiting the United States, and the thing I liked the most about the movie is that it's a very simple movie. The Kashmir Files doesn't try to weave too many intricacies, and movie making is a very complicated work, and often people who make movies they go into layers and layers of character development and layers of story building, uh, and that often makes the movie very rich and well done. But the good thing about Kashmir Files is that the character development wasn't needed and the story layering wasn't needed, and Vivek Agnihotri understood that. The reason they were not needed in this particular movie is because these are based on truth and the characters exist in real life, and the stories around which the movie is built have already happened in real life. And because of these reasons, there was no need to develop the character because the characters exist. The depth of characters already exists in real life. All Vivek Agnihotri had to do was to portray them as honestly as he should and he could, and he did it. So the movie builds on truth, and therefore it's naturally layered and it's naturally deep, and it's a very very simple movie that is honest to the facts of its time, and that is the reason I believe the movie is doing so well. I also think I'm in India right now, and I am traveling in Kolkata, which is not necessarily very very Hindutva friendly state. It is,
No, you
and
don't say.
especially urban Kolkata where I am. So even in urban Kolkata, people who I see around Kolkata who were born in the 90s, people who were born, who are currently in their 20s and 30s, they are surprised by the movie, and that tells you a lot about the movie. It tells you how much information has been suppressed in India, and how narrative building has been only from one side, which is the left Maoist Islamist combined that has worked together at a global level to produce narrative in India. So this movie is a surprising underdog wins all movie, and I think I that's how, if I were to describe this movie in one sentence, it is underdog wins all, and that's because the truth is on their side.
And that rattles other people, right? I mean, that rattles the people who are on the other side. So that I was looking at this story from the Wire. It's a Wire being a left, a left leaning magazine, or a website, whatever you want to call it, a e-magazine website combination. And Tanul Thakur in the Wire has done a film review on this, and his title of this is, as a film, the Kashmir Files is both laughable and frightening in its relentless communalism. The script and characters are plucked straight out of WhatsApp forward, but its oversimplification will appeal to the audience. So let's talk about this. You probably know this, Utsoda, that in 1990 and 1991, I did quite a bit of research on Kashmir, published a small booklet called Our Kashmir. And I went through all the newspapers, and this is pre-internet era, so it was a little bit more challenging. But I went through all these newspapers and magazines, and I documented all the incidents that were happening in Kashmir in that era. When I saw the movie yesterday, I saw these incidents presented over there. And here is a person who says that the characters and the incidents are taken out of WhatsApp. I mean, the person, I don't want to give away give away too much of the movie for people who have not seen, but there is a very brutal end to one of the main characters in this movie, two of the main characters in the movie, especially. And that incident has been reported, it was documented and reported as is. And yet, here is a person, Tanul Thakur, saying that this is a WhatsApp character. The only thing movie has done is change the name of the person, but the character is not WhatsApp character. How do you get away by saying stuff like that? Not only that, then he goes on to write so that sometimes propaganda can feel like first love, both illicit, unique, and searing emotions. Both seem like world unto themselves. Both function as secret portals into different dimensions. If you haven't heard or felt anything like before, it can be empowering. But then he goes on to say, uh, but unlike but if at all, the in the country of Godi media, this is like the government kind of endorsed media, WhatsApp disinformation and know-it-all uncles, you want some more propaganda, then head to the nearest theater for the Kashmir Files, because if alternate reality moves you in the same way that First Love did, then this 170-minute film will make you feel like a Yash Chopra hero. Really, Utsuda? For people who are brutally, half a million people kicked out of their home in the seventh Exodus, and this person thinks that this is all made up. And that brings me to another sentence that was said in this movie, and a very well written statement, which said that if it did not appear in the textbook, if it not taught in the textbook and classroom and did not appear in the newspaper, then it didn't happen.
So the massacre that is shown in the end of the movie is the Nandi Marg massacre that happened in 2003. So this is not something that happened in 1989 or 1990. It happened almost 13 years later, uh, and that's the actual incident that happened. And in that massacre, 24 Hindus were killed. Okay, and this is March. Actually, Nandimag massacre's anniversary is coming very soon. It's the 19th year of, and it happened on March 23rd and 24th in 2003. And in Nandimag massacre, 24 Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits were killed, and their age group ranged from 2 to 65. 2-year old was also killed, and this actually happened. So for the Wire journalists, it shows the level of brainwashing they have gone through. It shows the level of brainwashing they have gone through, and it also shows that there is an alternative reality that is being built for many youth in India, and that alternative reality is a very dangerous, self-hating, Hindu-hating, leftist, Maoist, pro-Maoist, and Islam pro-Islamist narrative. And that is the larger issue that we have to deal with. It's not just related to Kashmir; it's also related to other parts. And we have Devdutt Machi here, who is from Bengal and from Kolkata, a BJP candidate during the previous election, uh, and a very grassroots level activist who has done so many things that I cannot even describe them in one conversation. But he's here, and we'll talk about it with him when we get to the part about Bengal. So the point I'm trying to make here is that Kashmir Files addresses a symptom, a larger symptom in the society, that not just Indian society. It's a symptom that is being visible in all societies, including most Western societies also are having this problem, where disinformation is replacing knowledge and news and facts. And it is visible in India, and there is a very strong selected group of people who are promoting this disinformation. So we'll get, as we move forward in this conversation, we will have the speak about Bengal as well, and relate to the issues that are similar. But coming back to the Kashmir Files, Ajay bhai, so the Nandi Marg massacre is the one that is depicted here, and it is tragic that even
And there
most
was a
people don't.
6-year-old boy killed actually in that.
Actually, a 2-year-old was killed. So the age range, not just six. I mean, uh, imagine this: my daughter is two and a half. Like, she cannot even speak properly, and to kill a 2-year-old shows another point. Before we go forward, Ajay bhai, I want to mention is that Kashmir File addresses events that happened in between 1989 and 1990 in the Kashmir Valley. And it needs to be noted, as somebody who has worked on this Kashmir issue for last 15 years, what is not actually even talked about much in India and around the world is a lot happened between 1991 and 2005 that was outside the Kashmir Valley. So from the region south of the valley, Doda, Kishtwar, Jammu, Badarwa, there were so many massacres that were committed of poor people, poor, farmers, village, sheep herdsmen. They were Hindus, they were Sikhs, they were even Muslims. So th- thousands and thousands of people were killed between 1991 and 2005 in other parts of Jammu and Kashmir. Similar massacres: 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 67 70-year-olds were killed, that are also not discussed. I mean, even Kashmir Files, they could only cover so much. Even they could not show all the things. They focused on the Kashmir Valley itself, but that's something that needs to be talked about too. And I think at some point our movie makers, Bollywood, would eventually get to it. But there are stories that should come from other parts of Jammu and Kashmir about the suffering of the people in Jammu, and Badarwa and Doda and Kishtwar and all these places.
Yeah, so well, continuing on this, right? This guy is fixated on WhatsApp. He said the entire screenplay could have been a WhatsApp forward of 800 words. This is how people victimize the victims and trivialize the atrocity on people who are voiceless and who have nobody, basically advocating for them. It says in the movie, actually, they bring up and they talk about this, that look, I mean, nobody forgot, no, and nobody is forgetting the Holocaust that happened to Jews, a horrible event, and happened, during Second World War in late 1930s and 1940s. But this is in 1990s, and people have already forgotten about this. So this person writing in the Wire calls it myth making and calls it a WhatsApp forward worth 800 words. How much hatred? How much hatred can person carry for people who have been victimized not once but 7 times. This is the seventh exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, right? Now you're on mute, Utsada.
See, this is the thing, and that there is a lack of understanding. And I can assure you, Kashmir Files, if it was made in the year 1995, or if it was made in the year 2009 or 2010, may not even have passed a censorship board, because there was a general atmosphere of suppression on anything that affects Hindus. So any victimhood that shows Hindus as victims was suppressed. It's a long ongoing process that has inflicted us.
Let me, this person has so much hatred, uh, and so much hatred for Hindus, that he goes out and then he says, this, we are talking about the person, Utpal Thakur, who has written the article on The Wire. And actually says, there's a scene in the movie when this professor, a teacher, who is getting beaten up by his own student, right? And in order to gain strength, this professor says Om Namah Shivaya. Right? He calls out to Bhagwan Shiv. This writer makes that communal. Just to say the name Shiva communal, he says the first, the Hindu iconography evident in character names Shiva, Krishna, Brahma, Vishnu,
Ajay,
Mahesh, Sharda.
let me cut you for a moment. The name is Tanul Thakur. Every time you are saying a different name
Oh,
for
I'm
this
sorry.
person,
I am sorry.
it's not Utpal Thakur, it's not the
Okay,
Anshul
okay.
Tanul Thakur.
I murdered his name, but okay. All right,
It's not a
still.
he, most likely, it's a lady, most likely.
All right. So, Utsuda, first of all, this guy has zero understanding of Hindu Dharma. Okay. Almost every name in Hindu Dharma comes from the name of God and Goddess. Okay. There are 1,000 names of Bhagwan Shiva, there are 1,000 names of Durga, there are 1,000 names of Mahalakshmi, there are 1,000 names of Shiva, there are 1,000 names of all the deities, major Bhagwans that we can think of, right? They're called Sahasranamam. And even a name such as Ajay is part of Vishnu Sahasranamam. So there are no names in India which are quote unquote secular. And to say that Krishna, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Sharda are taken to give communal color, shows utter ignorance. And the person now you're so woke that you would actually chastise someone for saying Om Namah Shivaya when they're getting beaten up by terrorists, but you cannot call out the terrorist who is doing this in the name of his religion. So a victim cannot say Om Namah Shivaya, but a perpetrator beating up the victim in the name of religion gets no mention. That, if that is not wrong today, with this kinds of article woke takes on this movie, then what it is. And and there is a statement in the movie which which was a battle cry almost, for the terrorist, which is uh, Raliv, Galiv, Ya Chaliv, which means convert to Islam, leave, or die. And this is what they followed when they kicked all the Hindus out. And this person finds fault with that. And he blames Hindus for that.
I mean, we can talk about this till kingdom come, Ajay bhai, but the point is that they have reached a point where they will justify anything and everything. I mean, they will. The last resort of a Maoist is to support Islam is to bring up class struggle, and they will justify even killing people on the name of that, and they have done it in the past. So it's a playbook that has been repeated again and again. It feeds off each other's propaganda. It feeds off disinformation. At the end of the day, the fact that this movie is doing so well with so little budget points to the fact that it touches people where it matters. And I do agree with the Wire article, Tanul Thakur's article, that the movie is very simple. And that's the good thing about the movie, because it is simple and it is based on just simple facts. I agree with her on that. Okay.
So that there's another article, and I don't want to go line by line like the other one, but this is an article, um, you know, written by Asim Ali. And Asim Ali says, "Don't trust Muslims, leftist or secularist. Why the Kashmir Files is no Schindler's List. If you want serious exploration of the plight of Kashmiri Pandits, this is not that movie." So what Asim Ali is trying to say is that this is not a serious exploitation of facts, but all the incidents are factual. So again, you know why and he brings up the fact that the Farooq Abdullah, uh, the chief minister of had resigned when these incidents take many of these incidents took place. Well, they forget to mention that he resigned, and a movie actually shows that he resigned only a day before, right? He didn't like resign. The entire thing was already in motion, and it is almost just as it's almost like you set the fuse for the bomb to explode. You set the timer is going to explode, and a day later, and then you say, okay, well, you know what, I was not even at the site of bombing, so how can I be? And that is Farooq Abdullah. And uh, there was a statement in the movie which I had heard in past many times, which they repeated, and that is, now Farooq Abdullah, for those who don't know, was the chief minister, former chief minister of Kashmir, son of Sheikh Abdullah, the person who became the first, head of state in Kashmir after the independence. Uh, the Farooq Abdullah, every time was here in Delhi, he was a nationalist, because that's how he gained support from Congress and other people. Whenever he was in Jammu, which is a Hindu majority area in Jammu and Kashmir, he was a communist, because he would say, well, I really, we should all have kumbaya, and we should not have this, division based on faith and religion and all that. And then when he came to the Kashmir Valley, and when he came to Srinagar, he was a Islamist, right? That is the kind of, and but that kind of stuff finds no mention. Um, it you know and there's always this political aspect that comes up, Soda, and I would like you to address that. And that is where people keep saying that, look, it was not even Congress government at the center, so why are you not criticizing the people who were in the government? We do, right, Soda?
So if you want to be critical of the government, I have to say that those days were the government of VP Singh's government, in center. And VP Singh's government, as it was a coalition government, propped up on one end by the BJP and on the other end by the extreme leftists, it was a government that behaved like a patchwork government. So on one hand, at the central level, they were trying to address the deteriorating law and order situation, deteriorating terrorism situation, by putting somebody like Jagmohan as the governor to manage as or salvage. I won't even use the word manage. Salvage the situation. At the same time, the Home Minister, Mufti Muhammad Saeed, and then they were squandering away an opportunity after opportunity to contain the situation and fight back. So it was, as the government itself was in it was a patchwork of different interests and agendas. One side trying to save the people, other side actually working exactly in the opposite direction. And that was, I think, one of the bigger failures of our times.
Yeah, and this particular article, before I butcher the name, because you're keeping me honest here, so I have to kind of read up the name. Asim Ali in Asim Ali article, and I just want to read this last part of this article, which I found it fascinating that actually he's partway, admitting the failures of the left. He says one might legitimately argue that the intellectual and political left has not given enough space to the Kashmiri Pandit cause. And he's not saying, he's not saying have not done enough. He's saying has not given enough space. Very cleverly chosen words. Uh, and he says that, but their portrayal here is a screen version of a Twitter rant. So the previous writer thought of it as WhatsApp. This person says it's a Twitter rant of Mr. Agnihotri against urban Naxals rather than anything corresponding to reality. So reiterate what I said earlier. Almost every incident, actually every incident, every major incident mentioned in this movie is based on fact. Some of the names have been changed and the story has been woven together, but all the actual incidents of terrorism were all factual, right? And then there's this masterpiece um, from Insita Chakrabarti. Uh,
Ipshita Chakravarti. Ajay bhai, don't kill everybody's name, please.
well, I'm reading it as INSITA.
Okay, fine. Insita Chakravarti.
Why? Is it pronounced differently in Bengal? Or I know that you're right now in Bengal, so I can't argue with that name.
No, no, just carry on, carry on. I'm
So
being too hard.
how do you pronounce it, please? I don't want to. I don't want
No,
to
no, no.
mispronounce it.
It's possibly Inshita Chakravarti. Let's go. Go for
So
it.
okay, well, I apologize. It's spelled as INSITA Chakravarti,
Okay.
and this is the section called the Kashmir Journal, and uh, this is this is another rant, uh, and it's like, and she questions the numbers. Okay, and it said the film seems to be rooted in this grievance that a certain view of history has been left out of textbook and academic institutions. It offers blood-soaked account of the plight of Kashmir Pandits targeted by militants and forced to flee Kashmir Valley in the 1990s. And then it go and again, Agnihotri makes use of this epistemic haze to repeat distortions and manipulations of past that have long cropped up in WhatsApp forward. So that do you see a toolkit here? I mean,
Yeah.
one author writes WhatsApp, other author writes WhatsApp, third person writes Twitter. I think this
So
is. I would
I
call
think
this. I would call it toolkit journalism.
no, I would
Hey,
call it WhatsApp
I just got
journalism.
a new term.
No, no, no. I would call it WhatsApp journalism because the messaging that this is being spread through WhatsApp is actually being spread through WhatsApp by the other side. So what is happening is that they are the ones who are spreading WhatsApp journalism. They are the one who are claiming that the other side is using WhatsApp, whereas that claim itself is being shared with them on WhatsApp. So so that's the nature of this conversation.
Yeah, I actually I still like the word that I coined with Sudha. I like WhatsApp journalism. You know, um, so so then she goes on to question the numbers. Okay, and she said the film strenuously argues that what happened in Kashmir Pandits during the militancy was a genocide. The word is repeated and emphasized along with exodus and reference to holocaust. The numbers are trotted out to support this argument. 4,000 Kashmir Pandits killed and 5 lakhs displaced since the armed conflict began. And then she goes on and writes a long essay about numbers and all that. And then, just as a CYA, and people who don't know CYA can look up the Urban Dictionary, uh, says that each death is a tragedy, but it's not this big. Right? That's what she says. So, so the what's the deal? I mean, why? I mean, why this urge? You know, I would have thought that people who are true liberals would actually bleed for people who are getting persecuted. Why not in this case?
Well, you answered it yourself, Ajay. So what can I say?
And there's another article which I'm not going to talk about at all, and that just the title will suffice. And this is by you're gonna again you're gonna correct me because I'm not gonna pronounce this right, because Utsada, I'm sorry, most of these names you have better expertise in pronouncing than I would ever have. But this is from and I should get better at it. I'm practicing with you on this pronouncing these names. But it's Sayandev Chaudhary. Sayandev Chaudhary says the Kashmir Files using art for the cause of hate. That is the title of the article from Sayandev uh, Chaudhary. And so this is portrayal of reality and truth. If you really want to show art causing hate, all you have to do is spend time in the streets of any major city in India where Naxalites and communists do street theaters.
So the in the since the 1920s, actually since the 1920s, art and theater was the tool of spreading what they themselves termed propaganda. It's a word that communist, Marxist, leftists themselves chose. They used it since the 1920s around the world. In India, since Bollywood became a popular medium of expression, I mean, people like big, tall movie stars who were beautiful, wonderful actors like Utpal Dutt, Balraj Sahani, you name it, you name them, they churned out openly that movie after movie promoting disinformation, agenda driven narratives in Bollywood and took pride in it. I mean, Uppal Dutt himself took pride in the fact he chose theater and movies as a medium of influencing people, not necessarily rooted in facts. But, the thing is that, there is a Tuada Kutta, there is a Punjabi popular word now, uh, you know, Tuada Kutta, Tommy, Mera Kutta, Kutta, something like that, So, when you do it, it's right. When I do it, it's wrong. And that too, when I'm doing it, I'm basing it on facts. But just the fact that I'm doing it and showing something itself is, so that shows how much space, mind space, and popular medium they occupy.
Yeah,
They're unwilling to give a little slice of that space in public opinion making
yeah,
to the other side.
absolutely. And here, so that you absolutely is on the spot, and that is because take a look at this. There's a cancel culture coming to the Kashmir Files movie, of all places in New Zealand. So here you can see Kashmir Files faces row in New Zealand. Here is what former Deputy PM says, and the former. So there is a move in New Zealand of, to have censor board censor this movie, because New Zealand had this attack on mosque and all that a year ago or so, and so now they say, well, this movie can be viewed as anti-Muslim and all that. So the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand says not showing this movie would be to in the same category as not showing 9/11, a movie based on 9/11. It is hiding the truth. But the fact that it actually came to that point, that there's such a big momentum on getting the movie banned in countries. And Usada, we haven't talked about this, and we should at some point. But last week, the United Nations passed a resolution on Islamophobia, and we have consistently made the point that the real goal is to suppress truth, such as Kashmir Files being shown, because now in New Zealand and some other places, now there is a move to censor this movie under the garb of this being Islamophobic. So it is not just these articles. Remember, this is toolkit activism, toolkit journalism, toolkit WhatsApp, whatever you want to call it. They build the momentum based on one article. The second article leverages the first article and writes something by quoting the first article. Eventually, then they have this United Nations resolution in the mix. There were incidents that happened here and there in the mix, And all of a sudden, anything you say, whether you're a Nobel Prize laureate trying to give a speech about your own suffering in Canada, or whether you're a Kashmiri a movie maker, or a movie maker who's showing the plight of Kashmiri pundits in a place like New Zealand, you can be banned and you can be cancelled, right? That is the real danger here. With that, Usoda, any any further thoughts before we go to the next part of our show? And I know that we have a special guest, uh, Devdutt Manji ji, and so that this is, as we are speaking about Kashmir, we are also talking about uh, the other places where one of the great things about this movie, if you ask me, so that one of the really great things about this movie is that it has opened up a dialogue. And I'm going to turn this off for just a second. The it has opened up a dialogue about all the Hindu genocides that are happening or that have happened in recent past. I'm not talking about 100,000 Hindus who were killed in Kashmir by a Muslim invader. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the massacre of Hindus that happened in Kerala 100 years ago in Mapla genocide. I'm talking about the 1947, 1948, killing of Hindus in Kashmir. I'm talking about the 1971 Bangladesh independence war and the way the Hindus were massacred over there, 300,000, or more.
Not 300,000 anyway. That's the 300,000 is the number that Pakistan promotes.
Yeah,
It's 3 million. It's
it's 3
2.8
million.
million Hindus out of them.
3.8 million, right? So, and I was just quoting the official
2.8
figure.
million Hindus, 3 million is the total number. 300,000 is the number that the Hamudur Rahman Commission
Correct,
created by Pakistan promotes.
correct. Yeah, no, I just quoted that number. I take that back. So the these when I talk to people, when I hear people talk about these issues now, because of Kashmir Files, people are now talking about these other issues. And the interesting part is the youth, the Hindu youth in India, Hindu youth in America, Hindu youth in Western world is now asking what is going on with Hindus. And also that our generation, at least people who are adults now, will have to answer their kids as to what are they doing about it. And post election violence in Bengal has been brutal on Hindus. And you are now in Kolkata. And please introduce Devdatta ji and tell us about the situation or condition of Hindus in Bengal today. And we can't see Devdatta ji, but
Yeah, I don't know if you have a chance to put your camera on, but if not, that is fine. We can just have your voice. But if you can put your camera on, please put it on. I don't see you. Let me see. Can you hear us, Devdutt? Mm, I think we are having some trouble. Let me try to reach him.
yeah, and while you do that, so I'm gonna take him offline, and I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'm going to and about some of the couple of other things. So while all this is going on, the Karnataka kind of hijab row continues, and Karnataka hijab row continues, and now as an update for all of you, that has now the other side after losing. Now remember, you have to put this in context. We have always said that as Hindu Pact, we are not taking a stand on whether someone should wear hijab or not. Right? We have said that that is something for the Muslim community to figure out. We are not going to take a stand on it, but we do want to say one thing, and that is note all the people who are behind this particular movement, and they're all members of CFI, the Campus Front of India, and Campus Front of India being a front of PFI, a Popular Front of India, which being a successor organization to Students Islamic Movement in India, a banned terrorist organization. So be very careful when you and your mandir hear anything from an organization called Hindus for Human Rights asking you to sign on to their petition supporting the rights to wear hijab. You're not supporting the right to wear hijab or not a right to wear hijab, but you're actually supporting the people who are responsible for murdering Hindus as part of students' Islamic movement in India. Keep that in mind. I want to, as Utsoda is still trying to reach our guest, I want to bring up one other thing that I came across this week that people in this show will find really fascinating and interesting. And this is something that a person posted on Twitter. And I'm going to bring this up because this is an incident that every Hindu should note. The WhatsApp discussion in this group devoted to literature. Okay, this is a WhatsApp group devoted to literature. In that WhatsApp group, there was a somebody posted, large group, very large group. Somebody posted that nowadays, when Hindus, when somebody passes away, so when somebody dies, there is Hindus are increasingly saying Om Shanti and Om Sadgati. Okay. Om Shanti, peace. Om, peace. Om Sadgati means Om, good, good for the Atma to go to the next life, next phase. And they are saying that that is a sign of someone getting increasingly, according to them, increasingly people are getting Hindu washed. Okay. This is, and this person who wrote this said this is casual Hindu phobia. He just kind of just make a statement that you know, look, people are saying Om Shanti. People are getting Hindu washed. So now Hindus are getting criticized and are being called fanatic for saying Om Shanti. And so this person who posted this on Twitter objected to that and said, look, I mean, nobody questions rest in peace, which has its biblical roots, and nobody questions that. So why question Om Shanti or Om Sadgati? And this person
So
was
I want
very
to say
clearly,
something here, and Ajay bhai, I think we have to have the Devdatta. The camera has the camera on. It's not working. But Devdatta, can you hear our sound here? Can you hear our sound? Could you say something? We can check if we can hear you,
I have
because
to
we have
come on. Yeah, go ahead. Devdat?
if you say something, we can hear you then. Uh,
No.
I can't hear him.
Yeah. So I'll have to just ask you about the Bengal, or we can postpone the Bengal to the next
We can do it for
next
the
show.
next show then. We can
Yeah.
do it
In the next show,
in
but let me finish this thing. So that eventually that person was kicked out of the WhatsApp group for defending someone's right to say Om Shanti and Om Sadgati. Okay. This
So the point I was going to make before Devdatta came in was that there are words that everybody uses and they have clearly religious meanings. Uh, One of those words is Shaheed. You know, Hindus, Indian soldiers, Hindu soldiers, Sikh soldiers, they all use the word when we die in war or battle. We say Shaheed. The root of the word actually is a Quranic term, where basically it means somebody who dies protecting the Shahada or the call to Islam, the acceptance of Islam. Somebody who actually, look at the irony of this all. If an Indian soldier dies fighting terrorists, Islamist terrorists in Kashmir, the Indian soldier is called a Shaheed, when in fact he's actually fighting somebody whose job and whose effort was to spread the Shahada. So this is the irony of terms that we are in. To use the term rest in peace literally has no meaning, absolutely no meaning for Hindus. Hindus do not go 6 feet under the ground and rest in peace for for the judgment day so that their bodies can be
No, but
connected back to
Uttara,
their souls.
Hindus are broad-minded enough to not object to anyone using the word "rest
Correct,
in
correct.
peace." Hindus have no problem with it, and in fact, I would say that by all means, please go and use the word "rest in peace." I mean, that is in your professional life, in personal life. If you want to say it because we are broad-minded enough, and we are accepting enough, and we are tolerant enough that there are things that are not consistent with Hindu scriptures, and we still have no problem. I mean, even 100 years ago, Bhagat Singh, after he sacrificed his life, got it, by popular title of Shahid Bhagat Singh. Uh, and so we are, as much as the history would indicate, that these some of these terms are, not quite, consistent with the way we think. We are still accepting, and we still don't, criticize people for that. Hey, Utsada, we are, I think Devdatji is still having problem, so maybe we can bring him in next week. And we lost your sound now. Go ahead.
Devdutt, can you try to say something? Because it seems like he's able to see himself. Uh, still trying to figure out why
Yeah,
we are not able
so
to
I
connect.
mean, we are at time, so why don't we keep it for next week, and we'll do a dry run with him, so to make sure that it works.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna request him to save some time for next week, because as Devdutt can see, we're trying to add him here, but we are not able to hear him or
Yeah,
see
so
him.
then let's just keep it for next week. And while I know, why don't we go move on to some of our regular segments for now? Because I think sometimes this happens, right? I mean, we have experienced this probably more than anyone else, so we are pros at this, at experiencing something or the other going wrong. Hey, Vitsada, with that, we let's go to our regularly scheduled segments, and let's talk about the Hindu Seva Charity Act of the Week.
मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं लोकहितं.
Hey, Utsada, this week once again, the situation in Ukraine is, as you know, is quite grave, and a lot of people, and we are not taking side on the war, but we do want to help people who are, who are who are suffering because of the war, who are refugees, and who have to leave their homes. And four Hindu organizations are doing an amazing work on the ground in Ukraine, helping the refugees and others. So the first one, Seva International. You can donate to Seva International through Seva USA's website. Seva International is now a exemplary charity organization. They're doing amazing amount of work, and we highly recommend the work that Seva International is doing. Uh, Second organization is BAPS. BAPS is the organization which is the Swaminarayan Sanstha. They have mandirs around the world, including they have a presence in Ukraine, and they are doing charity work, giving out free food, etc., in Ukraine. The third one is ISKCON, or the Hare Krishna movement. ISKCON has around 60 mandirs in Ukraine, and they have opened these mandirs up for also for people who are taking shelters because of bombing, or who are refugees and all of that. And fourth one is Art of Living, Sri Ravi Shankar's organization. Art of Living is also doing seva work in Ukraine. So the Art of Living website is Art of Living. Please do a Google search on Art of Living. ISKCON is ISKCON.org. You can do a search on them. BAPS is also the same way. Please do a Google search on them. You'll find their website. And please do donate as much as you can to to these any of these four charities. These are the Hindu charities working in Ukraine for the benefit of people. Okay. Usada, the second one is Hindu Good News of the Week. And I thought, Usada, this week we will replace the Hindu Seva Charity Act of the Hindu Good News of the Week with a kind of an assignment that you have picked for people. And this is an assignment of what good book to read. So instead of Hindu Good News of the Week, let's spend that time talking about the Hindu book recommendation of the week. So, can we do the Hindu book recommendation of the week? Let me bring up that slide while you are talking about the book. So, you have picked a book as a reading assignment for people, right? What is the book? And you're on mute.
So I'm gonna, if you show the
I am
screen
going to
of,
show the book. Yeah. Please go
yes.
ahead.
So the book is, then this is, since we are talking about Kashmir Files, this is a book that is online also, but it is not in print anymore. So you can search for it online. Maybe we'll put up a link in our comment section and in our tweets for everybody to read. The book is Raiders in Kashmir, the story of the Kashmir War, 1947 to 48. And the reason it is important to read this book is because this is written by the Pakistani, later on Major General, at that time, much lower ranked officer, uh, Major General Akbar Khan. So Major General Akbar Khan in 1947 and 48 was the Pakistani military officer who was entrusted with the job of using Pakistani military, British military resources, and the grandfathers of modern the Taliban, or what they call the Kabbalists, the tribal Islamists, bring them all together and attack Jammu and Kashmir in 1947, right after India was declared independent. So within a month of India getting independence, 15th of August was the independence of India. Within the month, they started attacking Jammu and Kashmir, and then they came all the way to Srinagar. Then they got pushed back, and a lot of things happened. So, Raiders in Kashmir, Story of the Kashmir War, 1947 to 48, written by Major General Akbar Khan, is a book recommendation for people who are, often swayed by the narrative of the leftist Maoists. This book is from the person who led the Pakistani attack, so you will get an honest assessment from his side of what he was trying to do. And I just want to bring in some excerpts from the book, Ajay, if you go to the next slide, to explain the thought process of what the Pakistani military officer was doing. If you go back, Ajay, I think it's slide number 12 on our thing. Yes. So the reason I have taken some screenshots and marked some of these things for Major General Akbar Khan's from his book is that he writes about how he was fulfilling the task of his Muslim forefathers. So if you read on the left side, I have highlighted, the spectacle before us was like a page out of old history. Memory flashed back many, many centuries. This, one felt, is what it might have been like when our forefathers had poured into the mountain passes of the frontiers. He's talking about Muhammad Ghori and Mahmud Ghaznavi.
Were they really his forefathers?
They were not his forefathers. They were actually the ones who converted and killed his
So
forefathers.
these are the people
But
who killed his forefathers, right? Not his
yes,
forefathers.
yeah, and converted them. But anyway, so then he writes, here again were rugged mountains, and here again were descendants of the same men, probably looking much the same, clothed much the same, and plunging forward into the unknown in much the same manner. So he romanticizes the exploits of the Mahmud Ghaznabis and the Baburs and the and even though they were his forefathers were the victims of these people, but the then he writes, Major Akbar Khan writes, ultimately I wrote out a plan under the title Armed Revolt Inside Kashmir. As open interference aggression by Pakistan was obviously undesirable, as proposed, that our efforts should be concentrated upon strengthening the Kashmiris themselves internally and at the same time take steps to prevent the arrival of armed civilians or military assistance from India into Kashmir. So all this bull crap that is said, oh, India went in first, the Maharaja tricked us, and this only happened after India had already decided to go in, is completely false. Do not believe this crap from the Maoists and the Pakistanis and their Islamist friends. Another point I wanted to read out, and the names are the part is hidden in the if you know the part, Ajay, if you move the screen a little bit with the last paragraph that is highlighted, this is
Yeah,
important for people to
you can.
understand.
Let me just turn off our videos, and that way you can see that.
Yeah, yeah. So the part, this is very important for people to understand, who to understand what the mindset of these people were. By adopting the name by adopting the name of General Tariq, I had no pretensions to that great name, but I felt it would provide an inspiration as well as conceal my identity. So he used the fake name Tariq, and this is he's talking about Tariq bin Zayed, who conquered Spain, in the 7th century, 8th century. So Tariq, 12 centuries earlier, upon landing on the coast of Spain, had burnt his boats, and when told that it was unwise to have abandoned their only means of going back to their own country, had replied in the words of Iqbal, "Every country is our country because it is our God's country." So note this part. He's romanticizing about Tariq bin Zayed, and Tariq bin Zayed is the Muslim general who conquered Spain, or at least tried to conquer Spain. He did conquer later on the Spanish after 700 years, threw the Muslims out. And he's thinking of himself as Tariq bin Zayed. So this is Major Akbar Khan, a Punjabi whose forefathers were enslaved and raped and converted by Muslims, thinking of himself as Tariq bin Zayed. And then this is the most important part of his commentary. The last sentence: every country is our country because it is our God's country. So that tells you the mindset of the Islamists and what they wanted to do in Kashmir
He's a
since
globalist.
19,
He's a
since
globalist.
19. So that's the part I want everybody to understand. This is the general, major general, who at that time was an officer, lower ranked officer, who led the attacks on Jammu and Kashmir. So people, these books are important. You should know the enemy, how the enemy thinks, and that's why these books are important. Our people should read you learn the most about their intentions by reading them, not as much as by reading us.
That's true. Hey, so that's why we featured all these three other articles that we featured on the Kashmir Files that people would have generally overlooked, because I don't think we should live in the echo chamber. We should explore what the world is like. Hey, so that great job on the analysis of the book. As always, you hit it. Can we just say you hit it right out of the ballpark here, and maybe give you is that an acceptable phrase, or is that something will
I,
get that
I
will
am
get me in
I am
trouble?
I am I am Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli combined. I'm always going to hit everything out of the ballpark. I just need a bat.
Yeah, and someone to bowl at you.
Yeah, that too.
See, I think so you should thank these authors, because if they were not writing these books, then you would have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, but maybe a few more lives would have been saved if they were not doing this crap. I
Hey,
would
so
take that. I would rather have Hindus be happy and thriving and expanding and growing everywhere in the world than find myself these kinds of things to do. I would be happy to design buildings if I could and not do this.
so that if you were to design buildings, somebody would come and tear them down anyway, right? Because the kind of buildings you design, I don't know. The history is not very kind.
No, no, no. I mean, I design offices and multi-family houses in downtown
I
Washington
thought
D.C.
maybe in a better days you'd be designing mandirs and all, right? So that's why.
I hope someday I'm privileged to do that.
All right, so that the next segment, and I hope you have something, because I haven't seen your slides. But the next segment for us is, as always, is the Hindu phobe of the week, or as it used to be called, the Hindu hater of the week, or Hindu dveshi of the week, or what do you want to call it? So that here we go.
So the Hindu phobe of the
Oh,
week is this time. You
yeah,
you
go ahead.
go to slide number 18, and
Oh, page number 18. Okay. I didn't give you a drum roll on this, so maybe you want to wait
no,
till I
no,
give you.
please don't
No,
give me a
no,
drum
no.
roll.
Uttara, you can't do these things without a drum roll. All right, Usada, the Hindu phobe of the week. Oh, it's not in this slide deck. Yeah, I'll have to bring up the other slide deck. Hold on. Uh,
If you
this
refresh,
is
yeah,
no. It's a uploaded slide deck, so you can't really do that there. But I have to do it here. But it's you'll get it in just.
named Sumantra Chandra Shravan, Nihar Haldar, Rajiv Bhadra were injured. Four, actually, three names are here, but four of them were injured. I don't see the fourth name. Uh, a person named Haji Shafiullah, obviously a Islamist, Haji being somebody who's been to Makkah and done Hajj, led a mob of 200 people to attack the ISKCON temple and cause so much harm just because people were celebrating Holi in Dhaka. And so Haji Shafiullah is the Hindu hater of the week, Hindu phobe of the week, Hindu dweshi of the week, however you want to call it, uh, for being himself and being what he does. And I think that's the Hindu hater of the week, Haji Shafiullah from Dhaka.
All right, so we never run out of Hindu haters of the week, right? That is one thing that I don't think we'll
Yeah.
ever run out of. We may run out of Hindu good news of the week sometimes, once in a while, but we never ever run out of Hindu haters of the week or Hindu phobes of the week.
And people
So
who cause bodily harm and who kill people and who hurt people, then that's the level of hatred we face.
I also have one Hindu phobe of the week, Utsada, if you don't mind. If you don't mind
Please.
my mentioning that Hindu phobe of the week. I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can bring that up. But this is the woke Bollywood types, and so that uh, you know that is something that I don't know what to say. Also, that there's this Bollywood actress Kajol, very popular actress actually, and she gives advice to Hindus. When people celebrate Holi, and by the way, I do want to close this show with United Colors of Holi pitch again. But when people celebrate Holi, they it's a joyous occasion, it's a festive occasion, and people throw colors at each other and all of that. And the colors come in various forms. They can be dry powder, it can be watercolor that people try to just enjoy. People just enjoy Holi all throughout India. And Kajol tells people that have safe Holi and save water. This is, I- you know, I have never heard Kajol saying that people should save animals during, goats, especially during Bakri Eid. I've not heard say, I mean, she's in India, but she could have still made a statement because how all the Indian actors and actresses are now international. She could have said save turkey during Thanksgiving, but she wants to save water during one day of Holi. The same crowd that wants to save environment during one day of Diwali by not having people not burst firecrackers, knowing fully well that the burning of stubs and all the other things that happen causes a lot more pollution. In fact, killing of animals causes a lot more pollution because you take many number of times to grow of environmental impact of carbon of carbon emission to grow 1 pound of meat compared to 1 pound of vegetables. But that advice never goes out. So the advice is only meant for Hindus. So Utsada, if you don't mind, um, and we can
Actually,
share the
even
Hindu
Ajay,
phobe of the week with her.
I disagree with Kajol, and I think she's way out of her element on this. But I won't call her Hindu phobia. I agree with you, Ajay bhai, but I mean, I disagree with you and calling her. Compared to Haji Shafiullah, Kajol is a different level. I mean, I am not saying what she said it right. Obviously, she's out of her element, and she probably doesn't even understand what she's talking about in terms of the impact. But still, I mean, Hindu hater, not exactly Hindu hater, slightly off.
All right, Utsada. um,
That's
so
We have to be careful about where we draw the line here.
yeah, I think that people are just attacking Hindu festivals relentlessly, and if we don't call them out, we will, Hindu festivals are the ones that keep Hindu dharma alive. And if we don't speak up at some point, uh, you know the connection that people have with the day to day Hindu living, day to day Hindu Sanskriti will actually go away. Right. uh, so that with that, let's we don't have uh, I do yeah, Mahendra bhai, you're absolutely right. This is the woke India, right?
Yeah, but again, I mean, as I said, all I'm saying is I don't agree with them. I don't think they're right, but I won't put them in the same category as a jihadist or a Haji Safiullah. That's where.
No, it's a different category. I agree. I agree. I agree. All right. So that with that, we come to the end of the show. It's always a pleasure and privilege to be doing this with you every week. This is Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact? Any final comments, Sada, before we close out?
Pleasure is all mine, Ajay bhai, and I really love your enthusiasm. Week after week, 94 weeks we have done this, and I have to say that Ajay bhai is the driver behind this effort. However busy he's an extremely busy schedule. He has a lot of responsibilities to take care of. Whatever happens, wherever he is, he makes it a point to make sure the Hindu Lounge happens, and there is much to learn from this for everybody who is out there.
Utsada, you
So
flatter me,
I
but
really-
no, no, no.
yes.
I give you all the credit. We'll keep all this nostalgia for the 100th episode. But all I want to say is, Utsada, please, please meet with Didi. She's trying to reach you. I'm just conveying the message. With that, we come to a close of Hindu Pact episode number 94. Hindu Pact comes live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. Uh, you know, I, yeah, Tyagi ji, what I'm saying is to Utsoda, what I was saying was that if he doesn't meet Mamta Didi, then Mamta Didi will definitely hold him back in Calcutta, because Utsoda has been ignoring this invite forever now, since last few weeks that he's been there. So onus is on Utsoda now to accept the invite from Didi. But anyway, so Usada, thank you very much again, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Collective, an initiative of World Hindu Council of America. We come live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. We talk about contemporary American Hindu issues, and show is hosted by Utsav Chakrabarti, is the executive director of Hindu Pact, and I am Ajay Shah. I am the president of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, and convener of Hindu Pact. And we'll come again live next week, and we talk about the Bengal issue that we could not talk about this week. So our apologies for the technical difficulties, but we will be back here again next week talking about another set of issues, including Bengal. Right, and so please do join us next week. And before we go, once again, as always, we'll play a fantastic tune written just for Hindu Lounge by the group Decibel. They create amazing tunes. They've created by now, I think, over 75 of them. Again, this week, because of some issues with the rebuilding going on in their studios, they're not able to create a new tune, but they'll be back with a new tune. But this is again another one of the tunes that they have created in past. So please listen to this great tune, and as we fade out. Thank you again, and namaste, everyone.